And now I can sit on my tushy pillow because I'm an old man. Hello.
Your butt pillow. Okay, hello. Welcome to Just Chilling with Maya and my dad this time. I wanted to do a podcast with my father because we have a lot of interesting conversations.
Which we will not have here.
Yes, well, we can't get too real because one of us might lose their jobs. So, today's topic is... Well, I wanted to talk about a specific topic, but our conversation will probably go elsewhere.
Can we let the audience know why we are masked?
Oh yeah.
Because in 2020, there was this pandemic.
Yes.
So if you discover this 150 years from now, you'd be like, why are these people masked? Well, there was a pandemic, this virus, SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus. Anyway, Tess has... three
thrice.
times
She's had COVID thrice.
So that's
my little sister. She is 14.
She's had COVID 3 times. She's had 18 vaccinations.
Now I've had COVID only once that I know of. Now I've had 2 colds since then. One of which I got tested for. It was not COVID or strep. I just had a cold 2 weeks ago, but I didn't get tested. Which I know that makes me a terrible person, but I did not get tested because it wasn't like debilitating, so I just kept going with life. So I don't know if I got COVID then, but then Tess had COVID early February.
She just had COVID a month ago.
She just had COVID, and now she has COVID again. So we are masked, and my dad wanted us to be masked, even though we were eating in the same room. Like
yes, we probably have
COVID.
I cleared out CVS of all of their COVID tests. And, well, it's true. I bought all the COVID tests.
But you always say that you have COVID, but then you never do. I mean, obviously, knock on wood, I don't want you to,
seriously.
But I'm just saying, you're like, we probably have COVID, but you probably don't.
Well, now, with Tess, I mean, the odds of it happening are actually, they're greater than one would think. Whenever Tess comes back to, it used to be, because back in 2016, there was the summer of strep, where Tess had strep for ever. And we couldn't get rid of it. And so it was like 6 months, and every time she'd like, I have a sore throat. I'm like, oh, it's probably strep, and it was always strep. So now when she has,
was it Tess specifically, or was it also me?
Would I have
strep as well?
Oh, I think yeah. So everybody but me had strep that summer.
Okay. So that means that's a good
you had it. Mom had it. Tess had it multiple times for like 6 months.
Right.
I never got it until this past year. Tess comes in the morning like, I have a sore throat. Like, well, let's test you for COVID. No COVID. It's like, well, it's really bad. So it's strep. Anyway, this is the topic of our podcast.
And so now that, because I was feeling completely fine, but now that Tess has COVID, now I'm scared, and I'm like, oh my God, do I have this? Is something, because I wasn't feeling sick at all, but now I don't know if I'm getting psychosomatic symptoms because my brain loves to play tricks on me, so I don't know.
Well, we were all tested, so we are all negative. Tess is positive. We've sent her away to a special ward, and we'll see her
in her room with the doors wide open.
Yes, I came downstairs. Oh, where's Tess? So there's Tess, without a mask, basically.
I guess she's like, it is
licking,
what it is.
She was licking the dog. I saw her licking the dog.
Okay, today's topic. So I have a couple written down, these very existential questions. And I thought this one would be good for my father and I to talk about. So, and by the way, it's a conversation between me and you. If you want to look at the camera, you can, but you don't have to look at the camera.
I'm supposed to be looking at.
You can look at me. It's a conversation.
The general public.
If you'd like to do that, but typically I talk to my guests like it's a conversation.
Like back here, like I can see you and the.
Is the world doomed? Now, my dad, you're
in a word, yes.
Am I allowed to say your age? Okay, so this is, I'm not going to say your age, but you're obviously an older man, and you've had, you've garnered wisdom throughout your life because of the life you have lived. And also you're a historian, so I wanted to ask, from your point of view, do you think that the world is doomed? For my generation and for future generations?
So, yeah, I mean, historians don't predict the future. They dwell on the past. And if you look at the past as prologue, a past as precedent, oh man, right. Get me out of the simulation. Get me out. I want another universe. I want another universe. I want another Earth, because the history of humanity is just awful. It's not good.
Well, there's some good things.
I'll tell you what. Antibiotics. Again, going back to strep, I am allergic to so many antibiotics Yet we found one antibiotic. Can I say it, or will it be a product placement? You're probably gonna
No.
say it. Okay, so I can't say it.
No, you can say it. It's just a
So
medicine.
so Omniceft, which is a late generation penicillin. That's the only one I can take for strep. Everything else can't take. So I will say antibiotics is. I don't want to speak in
That's the only
absolutes.
good thing
It's
that
one
humanity...
one of the only good things that humanity has done. Antibiotics. So
Well,
so
from my perspective, I don't know if you want to keep going or.
well, I guess yes. I think we are doomed. I mean,
And that's the thing, because being Generation Z, being a young person, I often think, am I going to be able to have a family and have like a normal life? Probably, but then will my kids, my hypothetical future children, will they be able to have? I don't know. I don't know if the world's going to be up in flames. I mean, like you were talking about how Biden passed or is allowing oil drilling in Alaska.
Oh, yeah,
It's like the
project,
two-step.
yeah.
What is it? No, one step forward, two steps back, because they had this historic climate bill that is supposed to be super progressive, and then the whole oil drilling in Alaska. So I'm coming at it from like a climate perspective. I don't know how much world we're gonna have. What's going to exist, what's not going to exist. For instance, Florida, Miami, if that's going to be underwater or not, that's part of it, And there's also just social upheaval that, 1984, all this dystopian stuff. I'm like, what is the world going to look like?
So we passed 2022. That was last year, and that was supposed to be
the end
world.
Of the world.
That was supposed to be. That was the. If you've seen Soylent Green, it's such a fun movie.
I should watch that
from
movie.
1972, which envisioned 50 years in the future, where people were eating people, and you couldn't breathe because of the pollution, and so I mean, we're better than Soylent Green. I guess we haven't reached that
Did
point,
I tell
so
you
I guess that's progress.
That movie, when you look up, because I was looking up Chicken Run. I think I told you this before. I looked up Chicken Run.
Okay.
Because I was like, that's a very like vegan movie if you think about it, because I'm vegan. And then they came up with the list of vegan movies, or movies to maybe like inspire you to go vegan, and Soylent Green was one of them, because the human slaughterhouses. Yeah. It's not good, but I've never seen it.
It's not a very good movie, but the point is that from 1972's perspective, and I was only 6 years old in 1972, and for me, the world was, happy suburbs, and everything was Saturday morning cartoons, and so I didn't have to worry about, pollution and all of that.
Right, like I don't know what kind of life I'm gonna have. If it's gonna be safe or stable. It's not even just climate; it's also finance. I've seen. Well, here's the thing. So TikTok is another point, because it's kind of just like filling your brain. Oh, pause.
Oh, we have to pause.
It's okay. You can.
Oh wait.
I guess yeah. Hold on.
Oh, I guess
you can end it.
Oh.
Okay, so my father is looking up. I don't know. I don't even know what you're looking up. Something.
Stats.
Oh my God. So basically, I was thinking about how TikTok is very much like Fahrenheit 451, like with the TVs, just like constant distraction from like the things that are actually going on. And I know in China it's different. I think there's a time limit for everyone, for every child who goes on TikTok, and they're more educational videos. Whereas in America, you set your own time limit, so there really could be no time limits. I don't have a time limit on my phone for it, and it's just constant like brain video candy of just scrolling about funny things, regular things, whatever. And it's very much I feel like it's very much to distract you from, well, first of all, it's to get you addicted and to alter something in your brain chemistry, probably for the worse, and then also just to distract you from what's going on in the world. But I actually get some news on TikTok, and one of the TikToks I found was how basically this generation, like millennials and Gen Zs, are screwed financially, because something with like the way Social Security is set up and how it's going to wane off, and how then we're going to be helping pay. We're going to be helping to pay for older people's, like boomers, Social Security. But then when we get to that age, we're not going to have any, or something like that.
No, you'll have it.
And we're not
you'll have it.
But I thought we're not going to be as covered or something.
You'll be.
And
yeah.
and a lot of people in my generation can also not afford homes, and
well,
so it just not being able to afford living, the bare minimum in general. So that's also another thing of like, are we doomed?
So the reason I have a
class.
I have a presentation on PowerPoint, which you can't see, to this very topic, there was a Harvard professor who actually kind of looks like me. You might have to intersperse him. Steven Pinker.
Okay.
Doesn't he kind of look
he
like me?
He does kind of look like
Because
you.
he's got the gray hair, long gray hair. He's at Harvard. I am not. But he's the philosopher of the 21st century, and he's basically thinking everything's great. You know, his books are the better angels of our nature and enlightenment now, and everything is great. Everything is great, and then he has all these graphs and these, you know, like battle related deaths per 100,000 people are pretty marginal. Obviously, the peaks there. That's the Korean War, but it you know, it's pretty marginal. The rate of deaths from terrorism is low. The writing and the amount of writing and the awareness of human rights and different civil rights that has increased. So that's all positive.
What class is this?
But this is my History 100. But if you look at things like nuclear weapons, which you know, growing up as a kid in the 80s and the height of the Cold War, at the end of the Cold War, when it was particularly the early 80s, when there was a possibility of a conflict between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, and we had movies like the Day After, which gave me nightmares. Which there was one also there was an English movie which was even more frightening about the use of nuclear weapons. I mean, after the Cold War ended in 1990, it seemed like, oh, okay, nuclear weapons, whatever. But there are still there are over 10,000 nuclear weapons on the planet. And even if and Russia and the United States have about over 9,000 of those nuclear weapons, and if we use them, which is especially with Russia's foray invasion into Ukraine, and you know the losing that is experiencing right now, they could resort as a kind of, you know, last ditch measure to turn the tide of the war. They could maybe use some nuclear weapons. All it would take would be 100 nuclear weapons, basically, to lead to a nuclear
So Russia
winter.
has more nuclear weapons than
Slightly, yeah. But this is bad because it would just take a few hundred nuclear weapons to lead to a nuclear winter, and then in the end, and that's what.
I mean, that's the thing. What do you think would come first, nuclear war, or climate change just completely decimating the planet, or not allowing us?
Well,
to
nuclear
live
war.
under those conditions?
Nuclear war is an ever-present, immediate threat because we have nuclear weapons ready to go. That's an ever-present threat. Climate change is kind of the slow burn threat, where, you know, at a certain point you don't realize that it's like a frog in boiling water. You don't realize that it's so bad until it's too late. And so my first topic it was, you know, the nuclear threat. The second was genocide, and there are a number of unfolding genocides as we speak, several in Africa and in Asia. That
I feel like barely anybody talks about.
Right. I mean, there are right now the number of refugees, number of displaced people in the world is approaching levels not seen since World War II. We've had but this is 2018. This is pre-COVID statistic of over 65 million refugees. So this is a level that, you know, of statelessness, of displaced people, of communities being disintegrated and destroyed that we haven't seen since the Second World War. So that's bad. Then there's the you know, economic inequality, and I used Thomas Piketty's, who's the French, I believe he's French, economist, his book Capital, where he basically has this important graph, which again, I think you need to intersperse these.
Yes, I was going to say, send me your slides.
I can send you slides. So there's this really interesting about when Piketty sees something that was historical in the trend of capitalism that changed and then is back. So what has changed is the amount of investment from taxes, and what he sees is from the 1930s to the 1960s was a period of of investment where you had higher tax rates leading to investment in people, where you have the growth of particularly the
Plus
United
New
States and
Deal
Western.
stuff, right?
Right.
New
So
Deal
you have
policies.
exactly. So New Deal, and then post World War II, you had investment, but you had higher taxation rates, and that ended in the early 1980s with Reagan and Thatcher, and now we're back to this level here, where you have this gap between basically the wealthy and the not wealthy.
Oh, because they kind of merged a little bit. And
Right, where you had a burden on the wealthy and a growth in the middle class, and that ends in the 1980s.
Do we not have gradual taxation? Because I'm hearing that there are billionaires that pay less than like a school teacher or something in taxes. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes. And then I mean,
through the kinds of deductions that they're able to.
I don't really understand that. I mean, I don't know if that makes me a hardcore lefty, but I mean, yeah, I don't think that someone like Elon Musk should be paying less than a school teacher or something. That doesn't seem fair at all.
Yeah,
and also, I mean, my philosophy is that if you would like to have a government, a government needs tax. Now, if you don't want to have a government, go live on a boat somewhere or whatever in uncharted, unclaimed waters. But if you would like to have a government, and you pay taxes, to me that means you're paying like a club fee. Like if you're part of a country club and you pay a fee, you get the benefits of that club, the perks or whatever. And so if you apply that to living in a country, paying taxes, I would think that means you also reap benefits from what you are paying into. It's not just like, I guess, it's not always taxation without representation, but it's also just, paying taxes and then to have your basics covered, like housing, food, clothing. I mean, that's just what I believe in. I think if you pay any kind of taxes, you should not be out on the streets or struggling to live.
And to be fair, our tax system is pretty progressive when it comes to the lower end, but it's also then very, very, very is very, very favorable to the super wealthy, and our tax. Our income has gone up. There's no question. We have a very comfortable middle class income, combined middle class income. But we lost certain things, certain benefits in the past administration, the Trump administration, not in the Biden administration, but the Trump administration, where our tax burden actually increased. It used to be owning a house was a significant tax deduction. Mm-hmm. We no longer can deduct that as much. It used to be that they took off your state and local taxes from your gross income, and that lowered your taxable income. High tax states like California, New York, that's a significant reduction of your taxable income. Again, the tax law of 2017 did away with that. So the tax burden in those states, which really do fund the red states, which lag in almost every metric, education, health, education, any kind of employment. Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, some have higher, some have lower, some have higher. But it's certainly in education, investment in education, investing in infrastructure, housing, healthcare. The red states tend to lag, and are basically supported by blue states. Mm-hmm. So there is the continued economic issue, and then there's the climate change issue. And the books that are really terrifying are this is the one. It was by Elizabeth Colbert. She won a few years ago. It was the Pulitzer Prize, The Sixth Extinction. Did this elaborate study about how there's so much extinction going on right now that a third of all coral reefs, a third of freshwater mollusks, a fifth of all reptiles, sixth of all birds. Yeah. It's like there's so many extinctions that are going on in the flora and fauna world that is due to human activity. The humans introducing viruses, bacteria, fungi, overkilling, deforestation, carbon emissions, the acidification of the oceans, making the oceans 30% more acidic, which has had a toxic effect on the wildlife there. So
Yep.
this book by Elizabeth Colbert, The Sixth Extinction, that's
And,
really that's
are
terrifying.
we doing enough? Because there are times where I'm like, okay, we're fine. There's laws in place. There is progress being made. But then, like I said, one step forward, two steps back. But then I hear about other things still being allowed to happen. Like oil should not be a thing anymore. We should really be looking towards new energy sources. I'm not trying to say this to be as like a hard leftist or anything. It's just like it just seems to be pretty obsolete because it's going to run out. Like they are ripping the earth apart to find the last drops of oil. It's not a continuous resource. It just doesn't seem profitable. Why not just pick up and move on to the next profitable thing? If you want to make profit, fine. Find something that is going to make a continuous profit over and over again. It's very short-sighted, very small-minded.
And you're taking on a very powerful industry, fossil fuel industry,
and
very,
it
very
has
powerful.
such a hold on our government. I mean, people are so bought and corrupt, and they're bought.
At a certain point, fossil fuels will exhaust themselves. They're not an infinite source of energy.
So
maybe
I'm like, why not
maybe
just pick
in your
up and
lifetime,
move?
maybe in your lifetime, fusion energy will actually become a thing to be able to harness, and that is an inexhaustible source of it. And that actually would change the discovery of fusion energy, and which they're working on, but the making practical of fusion energy, that will change the dynamic, because then you won't need oil, you won't need these things. Renewables like wind and solar and geothermal, they only go so far. You need a lot of infrastructure to get them to work. But fusion energy will be the game changer if all these other things that I pointed to don't
kill us,
don't
first.
happen. I also recommend, again, this is so there's Raj Patel's book from a few years ago. So my PowerPoint might be a bit dated. Again, this is because of COVID. Because so Raj Patel who published this book, The History of the World in 7 Cheap Things, a guide to capitalism, nature, and the future of the planet. You really should read that.
I should read that.
You should read that. That's a great book, because it basically is everything that if you don't want to be rendered paralyzed and numb with fear and pessimism.
Yeah.
He's giving a very, very practical, reasonable. Yes, it's pretty lefty. He's probably, of all the people that I've in this particular module that I highlight, is particularly lefty. But it's not like, oh, we have to overthrow capitalism and we have to overthrow all these industries. But a lot of it is tweaking. It's shifting of priorities. It's investment. It's reimagination of work. It's reimagination of a capitalist economy. Yes, there's a bit of redistribution, and of course the right freaks out about that. But there's also substantial profit motive and incentive for innovation, and so what we have to get beyond.
Here's the thing. I think there's a difference between funding someone who is lazy and giving them a new home renovation, like a hot tub or something. I can see where people wouldn't want to do that, but I think if we kind of reimagine our social contract and agree that everyone should have a base level of living, and we all you have a base level, but you can always grow from there. You could be a multi-millionaire, billionaire if you'd like to, but that's keeping in mind that everyone at least has a dwelling of some sort, an apartment or whatever, and they're not completely destitute.
But that's Roosevelt's second New Deal,
I mean, from what I've seen about the New Deal, I mean, I'm a pretty fond of it.
Well, without the redlining and the racism that underpinned a lot of the.
Of course, yes.
But yeah, so. But
wait, did your race impact whether or not you got certain benefits during the New Deal? Okay, not that part then.
Yeah,
that part.
Again, consider. I mean, yes, in the broadest sense.
I mean, the Green New Deal sounds like a cool thing. They need to get that passed. Well, am I allowed to say that? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean,
But I also haven't read the specifics. But the Green New Deal, it just seems like something that would, it would help the environment and help people, and that's ultimately what makes me feel better as a young person, because I want to make sure that I have a future. I want to be happy and healthy and secure.
I think that from
and
my
I want to have children and grandchildren and future, and great grandchildren that are able to enjoy the fruits of the world.
From my perspective as an older person,
Yes, please.
The fact that your generation is substantially less beholden to either superstition or inflexible hostile capitalism. The fact that your generation, generally speaking, sees the dangers, as long as it doesn't transform like the boomers did. The boomers were obviously the hippies and the anti-war, and they were part of the counterculture, criticizing the system of oppression. What happened was the 1980s. These teenagers grew up, and then in the 1980s, they all became in the 30s, and they all became yuppies. The hippies became yuppies. They all became, conservative Wall Street traders, and Generation X, my generation, has always been a more conservative generation. It's a smaller generation, but it's always been more conservative because it was the generation that came of age during Reagan. And there's this imagination that the 80s were such a great era because of Reagan and capitalism was back and America was back. It was not a particularly.
Well, I don't always think about AIDS when I think about the 80s. I think it's just because in my one class, that's what we've been talking about. So then I hear 80s, I think of AIDS.
Yeah, I think that we're seeing with the discussion. The discussion is not even about how to tweak capitalism. How to. It's not about coming to compromise. You have a political, this whole other universe in this country. Tens of millions of people who don't believe in facts, who have their own alternative reality, who many of whom embrace a cultish dictator. They believe in superstition. They're guided. They're not guided by reason or science. They're not guided by the Enlightenment, and their demons are abortion, gun control, and gay people. And that is those are things that animate not tax codes. No, it's
or homelessness.
What animates or
climate change.
It is, as someone who has studied fascism, I don't like to call it fascism, but Timothy Snyder, and I need to name drop because these are people who are real scholars. Timothy Snyder, who's the historian of the Holocaust at Yale, so someone with a lot of credibility. He has a number of books. One of the books is called On Tyranny.
I think I've seen that book around.
Yeah. So he does label that side fascist because it ticks a number of boxes, following a cultish leader, basically denying facts, attacking journalists, finding cultural scapegoats, whether they're scapegoats based on their skin color or based on their class, based on their sexual identity, front-loading scapegoating and victimization, and the desire to recreate and impose a mythical past on the present. All of these are elements of the fascist minimum.
Like when times were better,
right?
When men were men,
right?
Kind of thing.
So all of these are for people who study Holocaust. These are all these are warning signs that are deeply troubling. And this is not like you're negotiating with the other side about what's the best tax code to have. The other side there shouldn't be a tax code because the tax code is evil. There should not be income tax. We should. I mean, just the focus on the ills. We should get rid of the New Deal. We should get rid of Social Security. But that's something that's been almost 100 years. That should be settled. That should be settled law by now. And
to be fair, not all old laws are good. I think it's good to, you can take things from the past and rework them. But I mean, obviously, I think the New Deal is like we were talking about, is a good thing.
Yeah,
but
I think that
my thing is that I just don't understand why people care so much. I'm like, why does it bother you if someone is like gay or trans? I guess it's the fear of like their children, like indoctrination of children.
It's because I mean, this is where I could get into trouble, because there is that's why I say superstition, because the institution of religion is there.
Yeah, I mean, you can still be spiritual and be like live and let live. I mean, it doesn't affect you. I mean,
right.
What the actions of the person. But if it's the whole thing of like they're scared about their kids and also like with African American history, like they're scared of their kids being lied to. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, you know, if it has to do with like being queer or being trans, I mean, you don't have to touch on those topics. And I mean, in school, I guess. I mean, unless you're like in high school. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the whole thing is like, oh, they're trying to groom like little kids, which is not the case. I mean, not to my knowledge. It's really not. It's just like fear based. But that's my whole thing. Because my whole thing is like homelessness and stuff. I'm like, why are you focusing on that when you could be focusing on people that are like living on the street, or like I said, climate change? Like these actual like real world like existential issues are being discarded or being ignored to focus on like there's trans people that exist, because gay people exist. It's like why do you care so much? I don't. And even if someone saw a trans person or a gay person like and that made them realize that they were gay or trans, what's the big deal? And they could always be like, you could always think that maybe you're gay and maybe realize, oh, maybe I'm not. I mean, it's just not a big deal.
You would have to ask.
But I guess that's like a religion thing.
Right. You'd have to ask people. You'd have to ask people.
Have these religious beliefs.
They're not. It's not based on reason.
But I don't understand.
It's based on their emotions.
It just seems kind of arbitrary. Like, oh, this religion says I can't be gay, so I won't. But it's not like. But being gay doesn't mean like you're killing people. Like, I understand religion being like, don't steal, don't murder, because that's something that actually harms someone. But being gay, I don't really see how that can harm someone. I don't. It's just someone who someone likes. I mean, I guess there's disease, but you can get diseases from a straight relationship. You can get disease, you can get COVID, you know what I mean? Just from talking. So I don't know. I don't really see...
the arguments
you
are...
do you. It doesn't affect me.
The arguments, you know, neither of us grew up...
That's true. Don't tread on me. It's like, I can do whatever I want. I should be able to do whatever I want. My right to freedom just stops when I am hurting someone else, you know?
Right.
That's the thing with like seatbelts. You know, seatbelts, having to wear a seatbelt is a law, because if I don't, I could fly out the window and kill somebody, you know? It's not necessarily just to protect me, it's to protect the other person, you know? And that's where I think that where your freedom should, I guess, stop. That whole, you know, like my one teacher put it, and this is back in high school, but she was like, the whole social contract was, I don't know if it was it Rousseau? But this wasn't in an AP Euro class. This is a different class. I don't know if she was talking about Rousseau or whatever. But it basically is that my freedom stops, like, where my fists and at your nose. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, she said it better than that. But my freedom stops the moment my fist hits your nose. Something like that.
That's Rousseau. I don't know who that is.
Well, no, it was something like that. And that I really agree with, because I should be able to do whatever I want until whatever I'm doing is hurting somebody else.
Right, but neither of us grew up in that world where, you know, where you're steeped in a family, in a neighborhood community.
Yes.
We have not and it's very difficult. It's very
religious.
It's very difficult to break out of that, and it's reinforced by, you know, social. You know, you have to, by conformity. You have a text that the consensus is that is divine, it is unquestioned, and so there's again we come from a world of we come from a tradition of you know, academics and critical thinkers and skeptics and atheists.
I mean, was no one ever super Jewish? You know, was no one ever like? Did we have any Orthodox?
Well, yeah,
Jewish people. Not just in our current family, but you know, like in our history. If we have Jewish heritage, weren't there religious people?
Mm-hmm.
So how did that kind of get broken out of?
Well, that's a product of the modern world. It's
and then,
a product
even on mom's side, and then your mom's side, the Christian side, how did they? I mean, mom broke out of it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, my mom did, because she married a.
But I mean, were your grandparents super religious?
No.
But your grandparents weren't super religious anyway.
No.
So I don't know.
See, but again, it's all product of.
But it's not to say religion is bad. I
era.
don't like to hate on religion, because I think spirituality is beautiful. But I don't. But it's that whole thing. But it's like, be spiritual all you want, but the moment that there's a moment where it can be problematic when you're hurting others, you know.
And that's
or professing hate onto others.
Yeah, and that's that's again, if we're going back to the are we doomed? I think, yes. and Carl Sagan, the great scientist, he warned us about, about a world that turns away from science into astrology and to superstition. Well, he warned about that, and I think we're seeing this this era
isn't necessarily of astrology.
No, but there's a good deal of believing in things that cannot be proven, believing in miracles and superstition, things that cannot be proven. They're proven because, well, you say they're true. You believe they're true. You say they're true. Yeah. You read they're true. Well, that doesn't mean they are true. They're not provable. They're not falsifiable. You're dealing with the question of faith, and when that kind of faith then becomes dominant, well, then we're back to we're back to as Philomena Kunk says, the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages. And the
Dark Ages.
The Dark Ages, yes. Which apparently you're not supposed to say. I don't know why. They seem to me, but I'm a modern historian.
Seems to be pretty dark.
I would not have wanted to be in the Dark Ages, because as a Jewish person, you would have had no rights.
Mm-hmm.
And
as a woman!
And no antibiotics.
As a woman, you'd have no rights.
Right.
And also, we would have been poor, which is so interesting to think about. I wonder, how our ancestors, because, all of our ancestors, their lives, they struggled, and it brought us to this moment, and to being a middle-class family. It must have been, how did they survive?
The Jewish side would have been most likely poor.
And how are our genetics, kind of not that good? With handling disease and things. How did our I don't know.
How did our
genes survive all of that, human history?
All of this evolution, 2 million years of evolution, to lead us to this moment right here.
Yeah,
this moment where we are the pinnacle of the evolution of which is just sad.
I know. What do you think about it? It's kind of So.
Yeah. Well.
Is that all?
Yeah, well, I don't, am I optimistic? I mean, I probably at best have 20, 25 years left here. It would be nice to be able to see a little, a little more happiness, a little more paying it forward. People really recognizing that you can have your freedom, you can have you can have life, and you can enjoy it, but you can also help people and help the planet. It would be nice I don't think that. I mean, I was talking to your grandmother earlier, and she was, when she was talking about social work, working in the... So when she was a social worker in the early 60s, that was before Medicare and Medicaid. There were no food stamps. So she couldn't help... She couldn't help people with it. She was upset because they really wanted her to be a police officer. Because there was no Medicaid, there was no federal, there was no Medicare, there was welfare came in with Lyndon B. Johnson and the Great Society and the War on Poverty in the mid 60s, and then the programs were phased in the mid late 60s, and had been challenged, hated, demonized by the other side of the aisle from that point on. Never regarded as legitimate, and so that's what I grew up with, and it just doesn't seem like we'll ever get a time where now in Europe it's not necessarily the case, because a lot of the parties there, have multiple parties, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't seem to have, we have a two-party system where, everyone, it's like, oh, we have such freedom.
Yeah,
freedom.
You said that.
We're so such free. We're so free. We have two parties. One party, that's the worst. That is so oppressive. Give us two, and everything is great. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
The pinnacle of choice.
Right, that is the pinnacle of choice. I mean, and there's a graph out there somewhere where it shows there's 4 or 5 companies that actually have a monopoly
Yes, on media.
on everything.
Yeah.
So do we really have choice? But
Because there's the illusion of choice where there's different companies you think are different brands, but it's
they're
actually owned by the same company.
Yeah.
That's
So
another thing. There's so many things that people don't know about. And one example that comes to mind, I know you're probably going to hate me talking about this, but the whole thing with veganism, people don't know. People don't know how milk is made. They don't know, like, and even before, I thought, I didn't realize, this may sound dumb, but but I'm not the only one who thought
milk
this.
the walnuts.
No, that's the thing.
You milk
Like,
the coconut.
I didn't know that they had to constantly, you have to be pregnant to have milk.
Right,
So
right.
they're constantly impregnated over and over again until they can't produce milk anymore, and then they're just killed anyway, So people don't know what goes on. They think it's the happy cow, they think it's the happy pig, they think it's the happy chicken, but it is not at all, And even if they're able to see the light of day, it ultimately ends in their death, which is never consensual. The animal never willingly gives their life for us to eat. So, but people just don't know. I'm not trying to be preachy here. I'm just saying people don't know about, people don't know about the monopolies. People don't know about the climate change. People don't know about the animal industry or the animal agriculture industry. So, that's, it's there's still a lot of ignorance. Even though we have the internet, the world at our fingertips, I feel like there's still a lot of ignorance. But then there's also a lot of helplessness when you find out when you are enlightened. It's like, okay, but what can I do? Like, I'm now just bogged down with all this negative information that's just making me depressed. Yeah. What am I supposed to do?
Again, I would read Raj Patel. I would be engaged. I would try to, small steps, small victories,
baby steps,
small things, micro level.
Yeah.
Pay it forward at the micro level.
I see. When you're done.
Yeah.
But I can't help but think, because with my club and me doing the community cleanups and picking up trash and handing out food to people, I think but is this really doing anything? I don't want to be doing just like little things and then it's just all for naught.
Yeah, but again you
don't want to work so hard to get this one. You work so hard to get this one small victory, but the world is still going to end up in flames anyway. You might get a person. You might keep a person. This is what is really tragic, and why I have hope, especially with your generation. I may not live to see it. It might take 40 years when you are like you're retired in your 60s, and it might because at that point climate change, because Florida by then might not exist. I better be a hot 60-year-old.
But all right, now I lost my train of thought.
No, I just can't imagine being 60 years old. That's disgusting.
But what a shame, because what you're doing now with the helping out the homeless in Overtown, with the meal distribution that you organize, what a commentary that it takes a college junior to do that. It takes we're relying on a college junior. Well, where the heck are the billionaires and millionaires, all the retirees who have a ton of money in Miami? Where are they?
Because let's think. I think about it. If I was an Elon Musk, if I was a billionaire, I'd be like, let's get everybody not a house, but let's get everybody a dwelling. Let's get everybody a roof over their head. I would be doing that. If I was Beyonce, instead of going to Dubai, I would be getting everybody a house.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just kidding, Beyonce. I love you so much. No hate, no disrespect. Your new album is so good. It's so great. Okay, bye. I love you. And to be fair, Beyonce does have charities and foundations. I'm not sure about Elon Musk. He probably does too. I'm sure these billionaires, these people, like, they have their fair share of charities and things like that. So that is something to take into account. Yeah.
And the fact, and it's like, and shame on these people, because they don't think there are billions of dollars
how the other half lives.
There are billions of dollars in Miami, and the fact that it takes a college junior to keep
But-
people alive.
Well, no,
is
and I'm
just
not,
becoming-
and I'm not, because we only do it every 2 weeks, and it wasn't even my idea. I mean, I didn't create this club, so this club had been doing
Yeah,
this.
but you do the PB&J.
Well, the PB&J thing, I guess, was kind of my. It was kind of like a collaborative effort, but it was kind of my.
And when you go out and give the, are you giving stuff for people for like a week or what? Or
No, it's just that lunch.
it's just.
Yeah.
But you're giving them. But are you giving
There's
them
water, and
But
and
still, the
sandwich.
fact is
But
are
it's
there,
every other week, and the thing is,
are there
there's
other
no-
organizations that are
there's
doing that?
sometimes, but it's kind of hairy right now because there's an ordinance that prevents large group feedings of over 25 people. And so last time when I went, there was a cop car on our usual route, and I decided not to go because I didn't know if I should like be a hero and just do it anyway and then possibly get arrested, or I didn't know what to do, so I just turned around and we told them there's a community fridge at this park like 2 blocks down. If you want the stuff, you're just gonna have to walk here and get
See,
it.
and that is despicable.
Yeah.
That is disgusting.
Well, the thing is, but now.
All right, so I've lost hope again. I hope
No.
I cannot
But
wait
here's
for
the
the
thing.
asteroid. I want the asteroid
But
to
then I was
hit
talking to
Apophis. You know,
I was
just
talking to my mentor, and she said that we should be fine. That the law doesn't necessarily pertain to us because something like that. Because it's not like it's not like, you know, you have this big platter of like mac and cheese and you're like, all right, here come and get it. Like, these are individually packed things that we're just handing out to people. So I don't know if that's a little, I don't know. I do not know.
if that happens again, you go and you be arrested. You go and you be arrested.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, should I
blaze a
get arrested?
trail. That's
I don't know.
appalling, and that's in a city that is again probably majority Democratic.
It's like the cop car was just camping out there, and I'm like, don't you have better things to do? I mean, I know
It was probably spying.
I know it's like, oh, it's a dangerous area, but when I've gone, I've never felt everyone I've talked to who's on the streets, they're always very kind, and grateful. So I've never felt like threatened or scared or anything. They're quite nice and they're people, so you just talk to them. But yeah, there was a cop car there, and I'm like, don't you have better things to do than preventing people from... No, and I say that because last time we had our cleanup, the one before that one, there was a woman that came up to us and said, be careful because the police are now starting to patrol this area, and they're fining people for what you're doing.
For feeding people.
Yeah.
Feeding the homeless. You've just now,
I don't know.
you've confirmed my lack of faith in humanity, so thank you.
No!
All right.
I don't know. There's. So obviously, this question
Have you told Mom about this? You should tell her about this.
about the ordinance.
Yeah.
Sure, I don't think I have. I mean, there's no easy answer. Obviously, you can't predict the future. I can't predict the future. Is the world doomed? Probably. And where I am at, I feel like it probably is. But then that means that you just enjoy the moment. You try to enjoy the moment as much as you can. I'm terrible at living the moment, but I'm really trying my best. I'm trying to seize life by the day,
Still try to
by
pay.
the moment.
You do it
And
regardless.
You still help. You still
regardless.
treat people with kindness regardless. Because what kind of life would it be just to be
Who are
Scrooge?
dragging this down
be
into oblivion. Yeah.
To be a Scrooge, all your life does not sound like a good way to live.
No,
So,
certainly not.
do you have anything else you'd like to add,
No, except now I'm going to go.
Dr. Jonathan
I'm
Friedman?
going to. I'm going to find some bone broth and turmeric and drown my sorrows. All right. Good night. Bye.
Bye.